The tragic killing of children by other children has focused attention on teenage crime. There's been a raft of ideas including antisocial behavior orders, fixed penalty fines and community support officers. Yet amongst all the rhetoric, a link has also been made between the absence of fathers in the upbringing of children. Jack Straw, the Minister for Justice, said lads need dads, and the former Conservative Party leader Ian Duncan Smith went further, saying juvenile delinquents are growing up without any true father figures. Instead they live with a string of unreliable and violent stepfathers in which drug-taking, alcohol abuse and violence is the norm. So what is the connection between child crime and the role of fathers? As far as the former Prime Minister Tony Blair is concerned, a major issue is respect. In his Spectator lecture in 1995 he said, "Respect for others, responsibility to them is an essential prerequisite of a strong and active community." In the 2003 Labour Party conference he said, "We cannot live in a just society if we do not put an end to the antisocial behaviour, the disrespect, the conduct we would not tolerate from our own children and should not have to tolerate from anyone else's." A handbook for this reform is called Respect, the Formation of Character in an Age of Inequality by Professor Richard Sennett. He is concerned with the fundamental discomfort which inequality arouses in modern society. Since the beginning of capitalism, there have been numerous attempts to provide a measure of comfort to the losers of society. Today we still feel the need to reassure the poor that we respect them. How the strong can practice respect towards those destined to remain weak is one of the key problems that Sennett explores. He goes on to write of the devastating implications of rendering judgment on someone's future. He is uncomfortable with an education system of tests and exams because they draw attention to unequal ability. He indicts tests that presume to evaluate potential talent on the grounds that it represents not only an evaluation of specific ability but an assessment of the whole person. He is skeptical of the merits of a meritocracy, fearing that it inevitably leads to a resentment and envy, as well as representing a threat to social solidarity. Practices that highlight differences in personal ability, he believes, lead inevitably to the erosion of civic solidarity and community. Professor Sennett lived for a time in a housing project for blacks and poor whites in Chicago, his mother having been abandoned before his birth by his father. His mother was an intelligent and cultivated woman and encouraged his efforts to learn the cello. His musical talent lifted him out of the environment and opened other horizons to him, so that when his musical career came to a premature end, he was able to pursue other goals. It is perhaps not surprising, then, that given his background, Sennett's work focuses on the sociological as opposed to the psychological. For him, the idea of respect amongst teenagers through the barrel of a gun can be explained in terms of the manifest inequalities in society. An alternative view is put forward by personality theorists such as Carl Rogers, who emphasizes the importance of the self concept and personal growth. He argues that both of these are essential to healthy personality development. The first is a need for self-actualization, which Rogers sees as an active striving for personal development. Self-actualization is making real or actual the different aspects of the self. This might involve exploring one's talents, educating oneself, or perfecting physical skills. It could show itself in a number of different ways in different people, but Rogers saw it as a fundamental need in everyone, which had to be satisfied or psychological problems would result. He described the second basic need as the need for positive regard, affection, love or respect from other people. Rogers saw healthy personality development as occurring through relationships, usually in childhood, though not always, which provided the individual with unconditional positive regard. This is positive regard which doesn't depend on the person showing good or approved of behaviour. The person is loved anyway, even if some of the things which they do are not liked very much. The security of having a relationship like this frees the individual to explore their potential, so they can satisfy their need for self-actualization quite safely, exploring the different things they feel they might like to try, because they don't have to risk losing positive regard through disapproval. Rogers argued that neurotic clients whom he had encountered during his clinical work had all experienced conditional positive regard from their parents or caretakers during childhood. This meant that obtaining approval from other people had become all important to them. These children had grown up striving for approval from others and neglecting their own self-actualization in the process. But self-actualization isn't just an option. Rogers argues it's a need which has to be satisfied if we are to remain psychologically healthy. If we ignore it, we become psychologically damaged. So part of the therapeutic task was for these people to get back in touch with their inner selves and begin to explore their own personal talents, inclinations and abilities. How then is it possible to use this understanding of child psychology to explain the incidence of crime and the influence of fathers?